My freshman year roommate showed up earlier than me. He put his couch in the middle of the room, he claimed the bottom bunk, and I fall asleep that year to the sound of him and his girlfriend having sex. It shakes the top bunk, kind of like a palm tree. A palm tree in a hurricane. And I want to be a good roommate, and to me, being a good roommate means being accommodating. I also want to be a man. I've got this kind of perverted sense at this time in my life that being a man means not complaining, taking whatever life dishes at you and just accepting it. I can take this. I can take this sex 4 feet underneath me. So I never say anything about it. I never said a single word about this all year. Besides, sophomore year is going to be different. I'm going to be rooming with Chris. Chris isn't exactly a friend of mine, but he's the boyfriend of my best female friend, Bernadette. And Bernadette and Chris together, they're like the John and Jackie Kennedy of our class. They're tall, lean, and handsome, and it's just fun to be around them. It's kind of inspiring to be about them. And the best part about this particular arrangement is that Bernadette has her own room, which means that Chris isn't going to be spending a lot of time in our shared room, and no more falling asleep to somebody else having sex. Unfortunately, I'm a pragmatic, so I show up a little bit early and I claim the bottom bunk for this sophomore year. Chris shows up a day later, and the Chris who shows up is no John F. Kennedy. He's ashen-faced, he's hunched over, and he's gained 30 pounds over the summer. Hey man, don't know if you heard, but Bern and I broke up over the summer. He turns on his computer, he opens up his music player, and he starts playing Dave Matthews Band. Dave is the only thing that keeps me going, he says. I learned quickly that sophomore year is not going to turn out like I expected it to. Bernadette is no longer hanging out with me. She thinks it's kind of awkward that I'm rooming with her ex. That ex, he's chronically depressed, and he's also in our room all of the time. Well, he's in there all the time with our third roommate in our tiny room. That third roommate is Dave Matthews. Dave is the first thing I hear when I wake up. It's the last thing I hear when I go to sleep. The week ends, the week begins, she says. To give you a sense about how I feel about Dave Matthews, I had to look up those lyrics, and I opened up a private browser window because I didn't want Google to think that I actually liked Dave Matthews Band. I have self-respect. At this time in my life, I like Sarah McLachlan. And unfortunately, there's no time for Sarah because it's all Dave all the time. Our room is just loud Dave and quiet Chris. The only emotion I ever saw from Chris, I think that whole entire year, was on September 11th, 2001. Yes, it was a terrible time to be inside of DC, and it was really scary, actually. But I'll never forget what he said, which was, as we're watching the news, he said, "I was really excited for a second that this was all gonna be over," he says. I should be a better person. I should comfort him, but I feel like I'm being such a good guy. I'm not complaining about the fact that he's playing Dave Matthews Band all of the fucking time, and that's the only thing that's keeping him alive. Until this one day, this merciful day, my class is canceled, and I go back home, and Chris isn't there. And I do something that I haven't done in months. I turn on Winamp, and I play Sarah McLachlan. And oh my gosh, I've missed this so much. And I play the album through, and I play it again, and Chris shows up, and he's startled at my playing music. But he sits down, he says, "Man, that's some sad music you got there. You keep on playing that, I might just kill myself," he says. And in that moment, I realized that all this time, between the bunk bed sex and the Dave Matthews music, that it wasn't that I was being accommodating, it was that I was being non-confrontational. I was just being passive. And I can be better than that. I can be passive-aggressive. And so I say, it gets better the more you listen to it, I say. And I put on that song, Angel, the one that sings during those sad commercials where they're trying to beg you to save those dogs. And I picture Sarah singing, smothering Chris. No more sadness, no more suffering, no more fucking Dave Matthews. But Chris doesn't slit his wrists, which is good, because otherwise I wouldn't be telling the story. But I do learn something. I learn I should play Sarah McLachlan a lot more. I should learn that I should ask, hey, would it be okay if I can play some of my music for a change? And I do, and it improves the quality of the room a little bit. And eventually, it's the end of the year, and it's just assumed, we don't even mention the fact that we're not going to be rooming together the next year. I have a new roommate, and let me tell you, that year, I play the music whenever I want. I have sex when that guy's asleep. But he's listening to this new artist, Nora Jones, so we find this happy medium between us. Thank you.